By authority of the Lords' Alliance, this Absolution Council will now come to order in the case of Edgin, Darvis and Holger Kilgore. This is the second year of incarceration for the crimes of grand larceny and skullduggery. It is the task of this council to determine your eligibility for pardon. What say you?
Hi, I'm Sophie.
Hi, I'm Paul. And we are
SP Film Viewers.
So it's time for another Patreon pick.
Yay!
Yay!
It depends on what you make and pick from, really, to be fair. It's not the patron's fault.
Well, as I said in the post, I kind of wanted to go for something that was fantasy-based this time around. And two titles sprung to mind that we haven't seen that have dragon in the title.
Wonder why.
One being Dragon Slayer, an older film from 1980s, or a more modern one, which is the Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves that came out last year, which I didn't get around to see, just because I threw that one in mainly because we've recently been a part of a Dungeons and Dragons game, so
Okay.
it's like, okay, now we played the first part of it, see how it compares, but when looking at this initially, I don't know if you remember seeing any of the trailers and stuff for it. It did look a bit, I don't know.
I feel like it's just one of those things where it's like, oh, what other ideas have you got? Oh, you're finding it hard to think of ones. Let's just call it uniquely Dungeons and Dragons. It's very lazy, I feel.
And how much is it going to be a bit cringe or that? So, truth be told, I'm not going in with super high expectations, but it seems like it's done marginally well from what I see from the scores and stuff. So we'll see what this has to offer. But
I think when we saw the trailers, I was a little bit like, oh, really?
Just the way it comes across.
Yeah,
I suppose,
and just the fact that it's called Dungeons and Dragons, I couldn't think of another name. I just don't know if it's going to be as bog standard as it is, or if it's actually going to be, now that we've played Dungeons and Dragons, there will be some appreciation from it. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know how much it goes into it, but the synopsis reads as follows. A charming thief and a band of unlikely adventurers embark on an epic quest to retrieve a long-lost relic, but their charming adventure goes dangerously awry when they run afoul of the wrong people.
Medieval talk or something there, Paul.
Henceforth, that's what it reads as, so... Yeah.
Intriguing.
So it sounds like fairly straightforward, like a team of people are just on a quest and all that kind of stuff. But
that's what Dungeons and Dragons is, isn't it?
Team
of people on a quest, pretty much. In a nutshell.
So we'll see what this has to offer. See if we like it or not.
Yeah, I'm intrigued.
So once you hear our voices next, we'll be back with our thoughts on Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves.
Okay, Simon, how does this work?
All right. Once the dead man is revived, we can ask him 5 questions, at which point he will die again, never to be re-revived.
Why 5 questions?
I don't know, that's just how it works.
Seems arbitrary.
Can we get on with this, please?
Right, yes.
And we're back, following day, after watching Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves. We're actually on the road as we're recording this.
Yeah. Shows how much we love this podcast that I am even willing to do it when we're on a little mini breakaway. So we've gone to the wonderful life of Brummyland, where you was born and raised.
Sutton Coldfield, specifically, yeah.
I've never been, so it's quite an excitement.
Well, tomorrow is taking you to the centre.
We'll see what we think. But on another note, so we actually played Dungeons and Dragons twice and had two of our friends be DMs.
Yeah, and so from watching this film now, do you feel like any more up on how it works, or do you just take it as face value of this is just a fantasy adventure film that you would, if it didn't have Dungeons and Dragons to it, you'd be like, oh, this is just its own thing? Because
I think so. Yeah, it can stand alone as its own thing. On the lines of, I can't compare it to Lord of the Rings because obviously Lord of the Rings is just a lot more better. But
there's a lot more to that. You got 3 films and then The Hobbit.
Yeah,
3 films.
But obviously different races, different classes, kind of that understanding of it, and also for example, Game of Thrones. In a sense, it's got that kind of era and age of it, the way it's been set.
Yeah.
But it does give me a bit of insight because at the moment mine is a druid, and obviously we do have a druid in this, and I'm a druid wood elf, which he's been raised by wood elves, so it's quite nice to see your character and how they act and how they conform, and helps you kind of build up that character, because I think that's the hardest bit sometimes in Dungeons and Dragons when you're playing the game, is the impromptu acting that you've got to do.
As and when, the DM kind of springs something on you, essentially. Yeah.
And you startled and you're like, oh, and it's like, I was never good in drama school. I can never tell lies. So I find it hard to act because I feel like I'm just lying because I'm not being myself.
Okay. I mean, from playing the game, it doesn't seem like you have to lie or anything like that.
No, but I feel like when you're in drama and you're acting or whatever, I just feel like it's you're not being 100% yourself. Whereas I feel like this character that I've got now, I'm tailoring her more to me, so it's easier to manage and keep up with how she would respond and act, I guess. So, shame for you, really, within this, there wasn't your character that you've got at the moment.
Dragonborn character.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, if they weren't really wealthy, from what I thought.
Yeah, there was a couple that looked like they were dragon-esque characters, but going into this, I didn't really know if you needed to know a lot about Dungeons and Dragons, as I say, oh, is this characters who are in part of the lore or something? I said, referring to the Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, taken from the book. And it's oh, there's Gandalf, there's Frodo, and all the stuff.
I don't think it matters.
So this seems like its own story, which is in a way good because it's almost like this is somebody's campaign that they're playing as. Yeah. This is Edgin, who's this bard character, and he's the main hero, and then he gets his band of merry men together to do a quest, and that's what kind of occurs, and it's its own thing. So it's somebody's adventure essentially that's been coming into play. And
I do remember seeing this and advertising this on I don't know if it was in cinema, and I was like, oh really?
Yeah, that's what initially going into thinking. I didn't have high expectations. Thought, here we go, another It did look kind of modern Marvel-esque type of thing. I was like, oh, this is some trying to be funny kind of thing that. So my expectations were pretty low, but I was actually pleasantly surprised as we went through the film, how well this worked. And as I say, not having that connection to oh, that's supposed to be this character. He's not acting like he should, or that kind of tone to it.
I feel like it actually taught me quite a bit within this as well, especially for my character. For example, a druid can transform into animals, and I was like, oh, can I actually do that? Because if I can, I don't know what skill class I have to be, but if I can do that, I am so doing that, because the rest of the stuff that I've got actually as a druid or a wood elf is obviously I've got a longbow and a dagger, but I'm weak as hell, so if somebody crashes into me, I'm going to die pretty much, whereas if I'm transformed into a bit of a bulkier character, I can kick ass a bit better. And I think that was something I was watching this, obviously coming from a bit of a great appreciation for playing the game.
Yeah, even though it's only been one big session that we've kind of got involved in before.
And I think it makes you think, oh, well, I can do this, I can do that. And kind of looking at the characteristics and such of how you would conform and play.
Me not so much, as I said, because I'm not a character that, oh yeah, he can do this and this. But obviously, knowing about how other characters are in this and knowing what sort of skills they have to bring and stuff. Some of them are obviously like pretty obvious, like a strong female character who's got an axe and stuff, and she just kicks ass and all that kind of
I love
those
that
kind of tropes that you get in the thing. It's like female empowerment once again, but the wizard who's kind of like unsure of himself, and again that's something that's not normally put into a wizard is, like Gandalf, who's like well respected, and he's like, no, everything's a doddle for him to just be casting spells and stuff. Where this character's like, they're kind of fumbling. His self-esteem's pretty low,
and as well, he's quite young as well. So if you think about him,
wizard in training essentially.
He's like a teen, or he's just young 20s, isn't he?
Yeah.
And at that age, you are about like life is like that. You haven't settled your feet. You're not going to know everything, and I think that's what's quite nice to see. Was like you're saying Gandalf, or even like Dumbledore, they know their stuff, but then how long have they been on the planet to be able to master that? Whereas he's quite youthful, isn't he, Simon?
You've got to start somewhere, I suppose.
Yeah.
So,
and in the end,
that's character development for him as a case of that. So
you see him come a 360 with it, and shows overall, yes, he was the most powerful one, and he should be in his place, but it shows that he just doubted himself all the time. That self-confidence held him back, which I can 100% relate to.
In fact, he's got a basic name like Simon.
Yeah. So we've got the druid, which is Doric.
Yeah.
And she's from It.
It's It chapter 2. Yeah. Yep.
Simon, obviously, we didn't touch on. He's on Detective Pikachu.
Yeah. And Jurassic World, Fallen Kingdom, and he's like a bit character. And he was a bit of a weedy character in that as well. Did you guys? Yeah, I think we.
We did. We went with Alex and Charlie, didn't we?
He was in it very briefly for that. That was the follow-up film.
Oh.
I don't know if you saw the middle one where they were they were doing an auction off it. Anyway, that's by the by.
I don't think I've seen that, but yeah.
Character. Yeah.
That's fine. Then we've got Helga or Hulga.
Holga. Yeah.
She's obviously the lady with an axe and butch lady.
Yeah. I don't know if you've seen her in other films. She's normally like, these days, she's in like Fast and Furious films and stuff.
Yeah, I can see that. And then you've got, obviously, the bad.
Edgin Darvis, who's Chris Pine, and I don't know if you've maybe seen him in comedy films.
Looks familiar, but I couldn't really say, he's been in a certain film.
Yeah.
We also have, I forgot his name now, but he's...
Forge.
Yes.
Hugh Grant.
God, is he not in everything nowadays again? He's like, 1 minute, it disappeared, like...
Yeah,
no, Bridget Jones, Love Actually, and all of that, and he was in like Notting Hill, every film that was back in the day.
Yeah.
And now he's coming back, and it's like, he's there again. He's an Oompa Loompa in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. He's just
Wonka. I think
Wonka. Yeah, he's just everywhere. So it's quite interesting seeing a different character to him there. I think this is what I'm liking at the moment.
I think he's sort of playing it akin to like he was in the baddie in Paddington 2. Like, I think he's kind of enjoying that kind of like, I'm the bad guy. And
instead of being like the hopeless romantic, he's now can be cast as a villain because he's a bit older.
So, good on him for stepping out of his comfort zone with that.
He does really good at it, actually, to be fair. You kind of love him but hate him in this because you love Hugh Grant, who wouldn't? But you also hate his character of how pompous he's been portrayed.
Yeah. So it's still got his Hugh Grant-isms about him. It's like, this is much too hot, this
yeah.
and all that kind of... So.
And you kind of just have to laugh at them. But at the same time, you despise him because he's lying and he's doing wrong, but you still can't hate him because he's who he is.
The only thing I'll say about that is obviously like at the beginning when I sort of the sort of backstory about getting this treasure and all that kind of stuff to save Edgin's wife from obviously resurrected from the dead with this like talisman thing, and he's like, take it before while we're in this like time freeze spell, and he got like, I'll take care of things, and he runs off, and it's like, what from here he's going to be the bad, isn't he? Like that, and so lo and behold, he comes like he's reigning over the empire, the kingdom.
Like, how did that magically happen?
Yeah.
So just to give a brief overview, obviously, we've got his main guy who initially had it all. He had a wife and kid.
Still has a kid.
Yeah. And sadly, I think he became a bit greedy. They were stealing, but it was initially for good and they never harmed anybody. And then they stole ones from the Red Wizards and they clone.
Yeah, which I've not I don't know too much about the lore, but I'm guessing that's something that exists that isn't just something they just plucked out of thin air. Maybe red wizards are a thing in part of the Dungeons and Dragons.
We don't have a red wizard. We have, I think...
Well, no, but I think they're seen as bad, so it's probably like an enemy, like wolves or ogres or something like that.
I see.
So that could possibly be if we look in the compendium or whatever, there's like a thing of that.
Yeah, possibly. We'll see, won't we? When we ever play more of it, we'll come to it. But so we've got basically his wife dies because the red wizards come after him because he stole their gold. Kills the wife, but the wife puts the baby in like a drawer. So luckily he's still got his child. Yeah. He's then on his own, and Helga takes pity on him, and she becomes like a bit of a stepmom to Kira.
Kira, yep. Nice name.
Yeah, it's quite cute.
But what did slightly annoy me...
I already know what you're going to say, and I'm hoping you're going to do it in the most diplomatic way possible.
I tried to, but if... It's, well, I don't know how best to play it, but...
Call it pigment.
Yeah. It's more like if the baby is like mixed, let's say mixed race, colour skin, keep it consistent through as she grows up, because by the time she's like a young teen, she's like, I know, not white, but...
I think she's still like mixed race, like... Because
but it's not as obvious. Like when she's a baby, she's like
you
very
can tell
like
by her
caramel
hair.
skin colour, and then
I think if anything, she's too dark as a baby.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And then suddenly, but I don't know. Maybe that is something that occurs. That could happen.
I think it's hard trying to characterize them and get. Well, I know. To be fair, it could happen because I was when I was a baby, I was bleach blonde hair.
Well, so was I.
So pigment can change, and it
but
can
skin hair colour.
Yes, but I don't know.
I don't mean skin, but I don't know.
I feel like if anything, though, you'd probably.
I'm just thinking
I'm
just thinking as a casting thing. If especially as they're only going to be like small segments of them as being a child, maybe just find a baby that was like lighter, or just change.
Maybe they weren't as cute. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Just a minor crack.
What are you like?
But
going back to it, so basically. Kira is now being raised by her dad and Holga. And Holga's taking pity on him because he's just getting drunk, and you can tell he just doesn't know what to do with himself without his wife. So they go on this mission to get the Talus to bring back his dead wife, basically, because this is the only thing that can actually do it. Mission fails, and obviously then we know that Mr. Winterfield, or whatever his name is now the baddie. And then we get to...
Lord Neverwinter,
so,
yeah. The land, yeah. And his Sophina, who's one of the...
I hate that.
What? Because it's like a Sophie.
Yeah. Why is she a bad person?
Yeah, she's one of the Red Wizards, or it comes to light that she is later down. Thing like, oh yeah, again you can see that, the way she looks. Anyway, she's got like that dark.
She always looks tired. Is that what I look like? Life gets you down.
She's all in on it as well. So she's working with Forge on that. But
what's quite good about this is obviously when we get the background story of it, but then we see that them break away from the Hilga and Edgin, break away, and we're going to be pardoned anyways because they're in prison for the fact that they'd stolen and a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Come back to Ford, and he's like, oh, well, I'm all well off, and he's like making Kira go against her dad.
Yeah.
And this is basically all kind of then the story of her dad getting a group together, trying to save his daughter, and then retrieve the Talus and bring his family back. And that's kind of like the main gut of the story. So it's all for this one guy, basically, and everybody's pitching in to help. But they all have their reasons on why they're going on this quest, so to speak. And they don't have to be that challenging, and they can all interlink. So, for example, Holga is obviously because she wants to help with Kira.
Her bug.
Her bug. It's like she's become her mum, hasn't she?
Yeah.
Simon, I feel like it's more of wants to show his worth. I feel like that's what it is. He wants to kind of become a good wizard and get to the point of where he needs to be. And then obviously we've got Doric. She's can see what the Red Wizards are going to do. They've burnt most of her land, and they need to be stopped before she has nowhere to live, basically. And that's her
But
reasoning.
yeah, the typical thing, I don't trust humans type of
I'm
thing.
going to use that one now, but we don't really have any humans in our campaign.
No, we don't.
Yes, we do. We've got bad.
It's one person.
One person.
Yeah.
So, yeah. The rest of them are not humans.
In our group.
Yeah, in the new campaign we've done.
Speaking of campaign stuff, they mentioned Baldur's Gate in this film, and I've heard that before, but I thought it was just a game. I didn't know if that was necessarily inclusive to Dungeons and Dragons, but I guess it must be. So,
We need to ask Jonesy
yeah,
and see what he says.
Because he mentioned about there's Alex said there's Baldur's Gate rules or something. So it must be something a different way you play stuff. I don't know, but anyway,
maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, just have to ask.
I'm all learning. I really am.
Yeah.
I do feel like with Sophina,
Mm-hmm.
the Red Wizard, I feel like that's a little bit Lord of the Ringsy in the capacity of the afterlife kind of trying to like take over. You know, the darkness and the.
You got some sort of threat, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel
Rather
like
than
is that the same thing with like Game of Thrones? What was theirs now? That is it dark in it? Oh, what? Making crap up now.
Is it Melisandre who was the red?
Yes.
She had like the red dress and everything.
Yeah.
And she had
And the imperial doom that everyone's going to just die.
Well, that was
and
like Winter's Coming, wasn't it? But it was like the White Walkers or Night King. That's the main threat in the Game of Thrones. That's the impending doom.
Obviously, what is good about this film is it's not as dark as Game of Thrones, which is good in a sense. It's quite light-hearted. To say it's a Dungeons and Dragons, it's not.
Yeah, it's like 12 rated.
Yeah.
I think so.
And even compared to like Lord of the Rings, it's. Don't get me wrong, I love the Lord of the Rings and I love the Hobbit. But there's a lot of, let's travel here, let's do this, and they're riding along, there's a lot of grass, there's a lot of fields, and it's like, okay, where's the story going?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas this doesn't feel like you get that a lot. You kind of get cuts of, right, we're going on a travel.
Yeah, walking through the mountains. Yeah.
Now we arrive.
It's tightly done in a 2-hour session,
Mm-hmm.
and to be fair, I wasn't going like, this is really boring or anything like that. So the time didn't drag when watching this. There was a lot of engaging stuff, and it was enough time to get to know the character. Because there was only, what was it, 1, 2.
There was 4 technically in total.
Yeah.
Obviously you had 2 baddies.
Yeah.
And then obviously Kira, which is the daughter.
Yeah. But you felt like you knew enough about the backstory to not be like, we want more. Like, it stretches out into a thing.
But you all kind of felt for every single one of them as well. You all were rooting for them. I think I had favourites, which was like Simon and Doric, just because obviously they were a little bit younger. I've seen them in other things, but I think as well, they both were quite humble characters.
Yes. And there was that sort of like
little romance
connection that they had as well. So
yeah, and I think they were there for the right reasons. I think obviously the main lead guy, he is there for the right reasons. He wants his daughter and his family, but I think he's a bit greedy because he's wanting everything. And in the end, he has to sacrifice that and not take all the treasure and kind of have to realise that he's lucky with what he's got at the present. I think sometimes that's the end story is trying to tell you.
Yeah, really is, yeah.
So I think the other bit where they do a lot of jokes is towards Simon's character, because obviously, can't you just magic his way out of this or pay with magic? Can you not?
Yeah. Again, just using we're in a world where you can do that. Why can't you just do these things? And it's like, it's not quite that simple, obviously. Yeah.
We do have boundaries.
Yeah.
So one of them was where they were trying to find the helmet.
This helm.
And basically they were like, my ancestors, for Holger, she was like, I know where they're all buried, and they knew, and then they're like, can't you speak to the dead? And actually it was like, actually that's something I can actually do.
For a limited moment, yeah.
And even that's quite humorous with the way that they do it, and they're kind of unethically digging up graves and then speaking to him and asking 5 questions. Initially he's like, is this right? Is this what we're doing? Or kind of asking stupid questions that he ends up losing his 5 questions.
He's done that one once. Right, I've got to dig up another person.
And it must be really exhausting, because I feel like this sometimes in work, like there's certain things where you're like, what's this process? I'm like, I don't know. I'll send you on a wild goose chase.
Yeah.
Ask this person, they'll know. Yeah. I don't actually know, ask this person. And you're like, for goodness sake.
Yeah, you're not asking the right questions, essentially.
Or asking the right people.
Yeah.
And just being passed from pillar to post. And that's kind of what they weren't digging up the right graves.
But I guess if you think about it in like a video game perspective, not just like a actual like playing the Dungeons and Dragons game, you're not gonna like immediately get it first time. Like, oh, you just coincidentally happened to speak to the right person who had the right information, unless they've got like a big exclamation point above their head.
Yeah,
and it's that kind of thing, because in reality that would happen. You wouldn't just the first person be like, well, yes, I know absolutely everything, and all this this exposition that you're going to give you and stuff like that. One of the things that obviously when we have obviously talking to some other people in these obviously flashbacks of the dead people, and they're talking about this stuff, and like one of the reliving the battle essentially, so as for us to understand what happened.
Yeah.
And there's like, oh, there's a dragon that comes down, that flies down, and like it's quite refreshing in a way. That's not like, oh, you just assume it's going to breathe fire, but then it's spewing out this like, I don't know, this sludge or some kind of thing that's like stopping people in track. Whether it's something that kind of just like bogs people down. It's like that's like, I know there's the things like that exist, like a poison dragon. So it's like, yeah, that's cool. Something different. Not just like, oh, it's another dragon that breathes fire or ice or whatever. Yeah. So there's more creativity to that.
I know we're flitting, but can we speak about the other dragon in this?
Yes, in one of the caves that they kind of walk across.
He reminds me of my George. So we've got a really chubby Jack Russell, who people think is a corgi instead of a Jack Russell. So he's been left in this cave for God knows how long, and he's found his way to find loads of food, and he's just gorged himself, hasn't he?
Essentially like a fat cat, really, like calling the treasure type of thing, and he's kind of like literally like
rolling around and
essentially like that.
He's so cute though, isn't he? He's adorable. Like, I've never seen a cuter dragon, if there is one. Like, I know Toothless is cute, don't get me wrong, but this one's like, and even the one in Shrek's cute, like the lady, like the persona of her.
Yeah. Meant to come across that way, but the fact that those things supposed to be a menacing threat, but it's just like, oh, can't like quite fly or just like get through. It's like chugging along, trying to get to him and stuff like that. And
he looks more like a little puppy, like struggling to get by. Like he's really like quite cute, even though he's trying to be fierce. And I really enjoyed that humorous side. Like
again, something different.
Yeah.
With that, which again could surely happen in as part of what the game has to offer. Really, there could be like, oh, there's a fat dragon, I don't know, but
well, I feel like this is the thing as well, like with the roll of the dice, obviously depending on what you roll depends on the outcome of how well you want your actions to occur. So obviously, like with parts of the dragon where he's like on the bridge and his main character's leading into his basically going to be getting eaten, it could be a roll of the dice depending on how the guy that saves him actually succeeds or not. You know, that's because that was another thing while I was watching it, trying to see when the dice would occur. Yeah,
but in terms of obviously a film, it's going to be like, well, we know
they're always going to roll 20s. You mean?
Yeah, there's always going to be some like they're going to survive. It's very invariably. It's not like unless you had a lot of disposable characters, like maybe so like 10 or 15 in the party or something. And it's like, oh, well, who's going to be picked off? Is like you're like, oh, that bad luck there kind of thing. That didn't, like, because they're only a small gang of people, it's kind of like, for a film storyline, it's going to play out their ways pretty much. So it's not, like, shocking in that sense, but it's still fun to see, like, different aspects of what I stuff, and especially, like, the convoluted humour. When I was glossed over another character there, what was, I think, called Zenk or something. He was like a paladin, wasn't he?
Yeah, but he had like obviously a marking of the red elf because he'd gone through the red elf like
mist or whatever it was. Yeah,
and his parents then were trying to take him in as well.
Yeah,
so he does have part of it, but oh my gosh, he's the most boring person in the whole wide world.
Yeah, he was a bit of a bland character.
But he's such a good character as well because it's like, well, he's amazing. Like you'd want him on your team, but at the same time, you just don't want him to speak ever.
Yeah, as Edgin also like kept saying like he just don't really cares for him at all, really. But so one of the funny bits when he was like saying, right, you got to get across this bridge, but you got to every other step you got to say this, but then halfway through you got to change to even numbers, and then Simon just accidentally, oops, that's kind of stepped on thing. I think, again, that's sort of the humour that you would have in a game, like, oh, this character fumbles over,
Yeah.
just ad-lib that, and then the bridge collapses as it would, and it's like, yeah, it could happen, I could see that.
Yeah.
And it's like, rather than just like, like in
Lord of the Rings.
when,
You
is
shall
it
not pass.
is it Pippin, who, like, in the Mines of Moria, where he drops a skeleton because he accidentally knocks one down in the well, and it's like, makes a clatter bang, and then all the goblins come out of the caves, and it's like, oh, well done. Like, you just ruined it for us now.
But also, I feel like with this, because it's lightly heartedly done, it kind of the outcome of this portal thing that he's got with his staff.
The hither stuff.
Hither.
And it is literally a portal gun, really.
Yeah.
But like in medieval times.
Hither. Because I like the hither because it's like, oh, we're hither in here, we're hither in there. Hither dither.
Hither, yeah.
It's good. Yeah.
Yeah, so
I actually really enjoyed it. Overall, I thought I was coming in expecting this to be a lot worse than it actually is.
Yeah, a lot of positives in this, yeah. Yeah.
So, obviously, they get out and then they've got the helmet, which Simon then tries to...
Put on.
Yeah, but what's the word? He's meant to be, like, be in sync, or what's it called? Connect with it,
Yeah.
And
have a connection with,
the helmet keeps rejecting him, basically.
Oh, it makes it sound like, oh, it's all on you, Simon. You've got to do this, or we're all screwed, basically.
But they do come up with another plan with the portal gun as well.
Portal staff, yeah.
Yeah, which is like, oh, well, they're bringing in treasure.
So let's attach the portal onto one of those treasures that happen to be going into where they need to be. So it's like, right, that's that means of things. So obviously the whole plan of putting it all together to...
And I think that's another insight when you play the games. It's like, oh, well, actually, you can be quite clever and crafty and think about these things. And, use your strengths in different ways. Whereas I think when we were doing the campaign last, it was more like we were suspecting everybody, we were challenging everybody. And actually, we just needed to think a bit differently, I think. It's like, now I know what my character can give. I can kind of step back a little bit and be a bit more like, oh, okay, I'm going to watch everybody else be dumbasses. And then I'll come in.
You give my 2 cents on the situation and come up with something.
Yeah.
So.
Or like, let the big brutes do the heavy work and then I can do something a little bit better and not get as damaged but still be impactful. Or if I could transform, then I'd be even better, wouldn't I? Because I like the idea of Doric because she could be literally a fly on the wall in one situation.
She was, yeah. And then, like, to run, going to be a mouse, to run down the corridors and trip. All the guards are, like, fumbling over me. And then, like, go out the window, and I'm an eagle.
Yep.
But then, like, arrows are shooting at me. It's like, oh, no, I've got to run, and, like, I'm a deer to run away quickly and all that kind of stuff. And thinking on your feet in that sense. And, again, works in the way of, like, keeping it visually interesting. For that, because I think there's obviously the camera's panning a lot, almost throughout that whole scene, I believe, almost like in one take, essentially. And obviously it's like mostly digital space that's working in, but still.
Still really enjoyable, and think for me as a druid and as a wood elf, is like, ooh, I can do all these things. Like, for example, I could have gone in when we did our campaign and being a fly on the wall situation, like, and listen in on the conversation and know what was going on. And do that instead. And I'm not having to speak to people. I can just come back with the...
intel, yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's certain things where it was like very eye-opening on how to kind of play these games going forward once you kind of see your character and what you can and can't do.
Yeah.
Makes it more interesting.
One of the funny bits was obviously when they're sort of in the castle. And the throw is like one of the alternate plans, wasn't it, I believe, where our bard Edgin comes along and he's obviously playing a song.
Yeah.
And then there's like Simon's doing this obviously like mimic thing like as a distraction, but then he gets his foot caught and so the thing kind of skips and then the illusion kind of like melts and stuff, and that was really kind of funny, like in the way that was done. Normally it'd be like, oh, that's stupidly cringe, but it was just something quite amusing about it.
No, definitely. I think it's one of those things where it's like, oh, you've rolled a dice saying, I'm gonna...
Yeah, you're trying to distract them, and low roll, you failed, and then that's that kind of situation.
Yeah. So I think it always happens to poor Simon, to be fair, bless him. But I feel like there's certain situations where you think, oh yeah, that's actually what the outcome of a low roll would be. which is quite funny and comical.
Mhm.
They do then obviously get, this is where it kind of ramps up towards the end, where they get caught, obviously, by the guards in the end.
But Simon gets to use the helm to his, like, he figures it out, right, it was me holding me back the whole time, really. Kind of slaps who thinks his great-great-grandfather, hits him like, no, we're going to die, like, get hold of yourself type of thing, like, this ends now kind of thing. And it's like, right, it turns into him. It's like, it took you long enough, like, things like it's self-confidence that he's got now. And so it was in him all along.
Which I love. I always root for an underdog because as we are British, we love a good underdog. And I feel like he's definitely empowers and embodies that. And you just want him to do well.
But yeah, they obviously still get caught in.
I think it's to bring them all back together because I think they're all kind of segregated, and it's just bringing them all back into one place. So they're going to have to be part of the tournament, which we know everyone's going to die anyways from what Fina's plans are. Then comes into a bit like a Hunger Games kind of thing, doesn't it? Where they're fighting. I don't know what that Black Panther. Weird
probably
things.
a monster that exists in Dungeons and Dragons, I reckon. But it's like like a panther with like these kind of like
insecty,
like tentacles that cast an illusion on, like you're like, oh, like there's another one of me over there to like that happens in like this maze that kind of comes up, and it's like, oh, this like dwarf characters thinks, I got you. It's, oh wait, no, it's a trick me kind of thing, that kind of stuff. And this, as I said to you, there's like this treasure chest, monster. That as you go to it's a chest, just normal chest, and then it got this like obviously like snapping thing, and they got a tongue and everything. I said that's that's the one thing I do know that is like in part of the Dungeons and Dragons lore. And also said that it's kind of like in Pokemon where back in the day, especially when you played the very first games, what you think was an item on the ground because of the way it was drawn. But then if sometimes you encountered it, it was actually like a Voltorb, which is obviously like a monster that is like looks like an inanimate object type of thing. So
that's quite cool. It also reminds me of Harry Potter. You know, the book.
Oh yes, that does have like snapping jaws as well. Yeah, the Beast. Is it Beast Compendium or something called like that?
I actually can't remember. Sound better than me, Paul. Let me check.
Something to the Beast book or something.
Yeah. Monster book.
Just Monster book. Okay.
But yeah, kind of the same principle, isn't it?
And also within this as well, the fact that again they've kind of taken away their use of magic. You know, why can't you just use magic to get out of this situation? Because they've got this magic suppression cuffs.
Taken away his hither-dither as well.
Yeah, on Simon and Doric.
Yeah, which is, I guess it's because they see it as they've got an added bonus, which is not fair because obviously not everyone can have them perks, so you have to go by your brain, your strength, but then to be fair, that's not really fair because obviously Hulga has a lot more strength than Simon does, so it isn't really fair.
We're not playing for fair. They just mean just the mains of just so Fina says like they've outwitted my guards, like it's just because it would just be easy just to kill them. Like Forge wants to kill him like there and then when he's got them. There's like kind of tentacle things, which as another thing as well. Like I know there's obviously CGI that they could have just done for absolutely everything, but there's actually some aspects where there was actually like like practical things, especially like say that mentioned about those dragon looking characters. They were kind of like people in costumes.
All right.
That there was that was that fish.
Yes.
Zenk.
The little cat.
Yeah, the little cat people.
They're so cute.
Yeah.
I didn't know you could be a cat.
It's like in Skyrim a little bit.
Yeah. It does have a bit of Skyrim-esque to it.
I'm sure there's probably other races as well. I think there was one that kind of looked like someone that was like a lizard person as well. Not just a dragon person, like a snake one. In the jail cell and stuff, obviously orcs and stuff like this and stuff. But
shows that there's different races, but also that people can be a bit snobbish and racist even in Dungeons and Dragons.
But for that, I say like, and because I say that those tentacles that were wrapped around them on parts that did like looked like they were actually there, and it wasn't just like it definitely looks like a CGI tentacle. Took some effort to put in that, so again another tick from me there, because, like, sometimes CGI can look a bit ropey.
Yeah.
Even in these modern times, it's like, you don't believe it's there. And then we sort of get, after, obviously, they pass the trials with that. They get out of that acid jelly block thing, whatever it is, through Doric's, like, she sticking her hand in or something, that she gets pulled off the cuff so that she can do a magic and she can turn into a snake and get them out.
But I feel like she brings a lot to actually helping them escape majority of the time. She actually saves the bacon a lot with this, I feel like.
Because she's got the ability to transform into anything, which...
Yeah. Like an owl bear.
Yeah. Which I don't know if you see that as... It could be seen as like an OP power, but overpowered. Like, oh,
you mean
it's
like
just...
Pikachu, like you complain
like,
about.
Yeah, it's like, oh, it's just easy because I can just turn into, I don't know, a whale or something and, like, crush everybody. And an elephant or something and just stomp all over the people and that'd be that. But that, obviously, that never really happens, anything to that capacity. It's all various small things, let's say the least, except for the owlbear.
The owlbear's the best bit. Like, I didn't even think there was an owlbear that could exist. Like, it's quite funny because my sister's called Sarah Bear, so she's a bear.
Mm-hmm.
And my favourite animal is an owl. Like, I absolutely love owls.
Yeah.
And now it's kind of, my dad associates an owl with me being wise and, like, a bear with Sarah because she's fluffy and cute and cuddly. Mm-hmm. But together, we're a fierce
combine.
Owl bear.
We merge into...
Yeah. An owl bear. I mean, why not?
Although I did say, like, well, if you had wings...
Yeah, because I initially thought it was a hippogriff. That, like, from Harry Potter, like, when it was transforming, that's what I thought it was going for when I first saw it. Mm-hmm. Until it was kind of like, I think they had to tell you it was an owl bear, didn't they? Because otherwise would you have really known? Because it's got, like, a face like an owl, but it doesn't have any wings, which is a bit stupid.
It's just got the bear muscles and the torso, so...
Like, if it had wings, I'd be even more impressed.
Yeah. Because I think that's...
Like, he's got everything then.
It's got... Because obviously a bear's got his jaws and everything, which is not it's powerful enough, but...
No, but an owl's jaw can be quite...
As powerful as a bear's?
Sorry, probably not, but then it depends. You've got the claws, have you got the claws of the owl or...
No, it was just a bear by looks, so that's what I mean. It's like, what does it...
Maybe it's bringing the wisdom of the owl to the bear.
More intelligent than...
Yeah. Let's go with that. Sounds good.
Because his head didn't rotate all the way around like an owl does. That would be more like, I can see all angles that someone's coming at me. Anyway, it's by the... But
still, amazing.
Yeah, and all that kind of leads into, like, the final confrontation with Sofina.
Which I think she gets her upcomings, and obviously her plan doesn't go to plan.
And, because he used the staff portal thing to spill the riches out of Forge's. He's trying to run away with all the gold and everything and give all the kingdom to Sofina, but because they all the poor Scarpa, like, get the gold, the riches and stuff, and so
which he promised it did.
And she's like, no, the plan's foiled because they needed everyone in the stadium to
be able to kind of kill them all at once.
And with the undead army, whatever, and so it all goes to pot.
Kiro sees...
Yeah, she learns the truth. Really.
Yeah, Dad's telling the truth, and they were going to kind of have a happily ever after with the boat and everybody being on it and sailing away until they see that obviously what Sofina's doing. Then they're like, oh, right, let's go back then. We'll have to save another day. And I don't know, the fight at the end doesn't seem too long. It just seemed quite intriguing.
No, I know. I did pause it, like, thinking, we've got like 10, 15 minutes left here. And thinking, well, right, that's sailing away, and that was it. Yeah. And then obviously they go back and thinking, they're going to cram all this stuff in, like...
10 minutes.
10 minutes and stuff. But, let's say, like, it wasn't like didn't seem like a super rushed job or anything like what they did.
And even at the end, the way that it kind of closed, obviously with Holger having the red wizard knife in her. Yeah. Obviously, once you've got that no magic or anything can heal you, you're basically going to die.
Right. But even I don't know if you knew, like, see where this is going.
Oh, yeah, but at the same time, it's still touching and heartfelt because she has been the mum for Kira ever since, really, to be fair to her. Kira didn't really know her mum.
Yeah, so in a way, it makes sense that the way it did it that so she's like agrees, like, yeah, let's resurrect her
Mm-hmm.
instead, because so I didn't know my mum at all. Obviously, it mean a lot to her dad to bring his wife
but that
back,
would be
but
selfish.
yeah. Whereas, so like, yeah, she's like, she was pretty much a mum
Yeah.
to her whole life, really, and so like she meant a lot to her. And obviously, they have that connection. Obviously, got a nickname of Bug and all that kind of stuff. And
basically, that she did have a mum and dad all along. It was just that the dad was missing his wife.
Surrogate mum, yeah,
Yeah.
essentially. So, and obviously, it still means a lot to her that she got along with Kira so well and stuff. So, it's not like a romantic relationship that they've got. It's
nice.
just it's not like, oh, we're going to be a happy family in that sense. As well, it's kind of just like a, just friendly.
We've built
connection,
a family. We're going to stick together no matter what. And it doesn't, they're more like a brother and sister raising a child together.
Yeah.
But
they even said that at the beginning, like, she likes sister to me. Yeah.
I love it. Then obviously Sophia's dead. Obviously we've re-erected Holger.
Resurrected, yeah.
And then it kind of does like a little bit of a...
like back at the Wood Elf,
which is absolutely
forest.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like this is why I've always wanted to be like a wood elf, because even with the Lord of the Rings, it's that...
It's sort of like nature's a strong point of it all, isn't it, really? So,
which, you know me with my gardening.
Yeah.
But I think it's one of those, just the woodlands and the lavishness of it all. And and I feel like then you kind of know that Simon's going to get with...
it's hinted at, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
And it's like,
and there's a little bit of humour there, and it kind of ends on a light note.
Even after the fact, it reminded a bit of Paddington 2 as well, because Hugh Grant, there's like cuts to Hugh Grant back in he's been now put in that prison hold, and he's kind of trying to argue the plea of like to pardon to get out, and it doesn't work out. For he thinks he can do the same as what Edgin did at the start, like jump out of the window with that Falcon guy, and he's like, no, it's the curtains bricked off now, so this never happens again.
They've learned the lesson. They're like, we saw where that came from. We're not going to do it again.
Mm-hmm. He's just like, it all started with my mother, and he tries to do a flashback, and they're like, no, we're not having it. This kind of thing. So it's really good. And then that's pretty much it. And then it kind of cuts to the credits, and then there's like a little, I guess, like Marvel-esque kind of thing where partway through they cut back to one of the undead people he never asked the final question to. He's still sat there going, hello, someone going to ask me a question, because he's like now stuck in sort of like a limbo, purgatory type thing. It's like, because he can't never unrest.
Bless him.
So, and as I continue through, I was thinking, is there going to be like a follow-up? Like, are they going to build this up into like some sort of like cinematic universe of some?
They could.
Which I think, to be fair, they easily could, really. Mm-hmm. Or maybe not necessarily, maybe a different set of people to work with, not necessarily the same people. As if they wanted
have like one of them, and then...
What do you mean?
We could have one of the characters, like, let's say we have Simon, but then he's going on another quest and needs other people to come with him, because let's say, like, now Holger and Kira and the dad are not going to want to go because they're happy with what they've got. So he could go on his own on a different quest, and you could have, like...
Or somebody else... And then they kind of like, they sort of make cameos along the way. Yeah. It's like, there's this famous wizard that I've heard about, and, like, he's a big success, and we need your help. Yeah, even if he's like then the guy that they seeked help this time, he could then be like that kind of, not part of the clan, so to speak, but they definitely could do something with it if they wanted to. If they wanted to. I don't know. I obviously didn't really look into like box office numbers or how successful it is, but from what I've seen on like Rotten Tomatoes and stuff, it seemed like fairly positive. It doesn't seem like a really low score even on like IMDb or anything like that. That's good. So obviously it hit well with people, and it didn't like offend like, this is the absolute worst thing ever. Yeah. Because I think there was a just called Dungeons and Dragons like way back when, but I think it was at a point when Hollywood was trying to like, let's just make game adaptations for the sake of it, and I don't know if that was the wrong time to do it, and it's like the CGI I would imagine would be pretty terrible, and so just not come across as strongly. I think probably the same time they did like Mortal Kombat things and things that's linking, it's like just didn't work at that point, but now with technology and better script writing and all that kind of stuff which I would say works well in this.
I think they've really thought it through so that within this film you get the best of both worlds. Like, if you're not a big fan of Dungeons and Dragons, it doesn't actually matter.
Like, for us, I'd say, like, going into this, not thinking, we need to know absolutely everything about it to understand it. I don't think you do. It's like it could, like I say, it could very well be its own fantasy world, and you just go along with it and be like, yeah, okay, whatever. Yeah.
But also for the people who do play it, I feel like there's a lot of worth and value added in the way what they've done with it.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't like to say, obviously we're a bit of a novice, but I feel like they haven't done the game a disjustice. Like,
from what I can tell, no. If you're a big Dungeons and Dragons player and thinking, well, actually they got this wrong, reach out and let us know. If there's something that was incorrect, misrepresented or whatever. But
I think overall, pretty good. So, because are we going to scores now? Sorry.
Yes, we are going to scores.
Because neither one of us have seen this just means I throw you under the bus and you got to go first. Now, sit and listen.
Well, I remember last episode. I know I guess voted first.
Yes.
But then you technically you were supposed to go next because you hadn't seen the film. But it doesn't matter how that's.
Oh, you let that slide, will you? How come you went first? Did I tell you to go?
No, I think I just.
Did. So you can't blame me then. you the one who was like, oh, it's about me now. I'm gonna vote, and I was like, okay. Should have told you off, shouldn't I? I don't mind you going first. It's fine. Or do you want me to go first now to make it equal?
No, sorry, I'll go first.
Okay, good. Yeah, you like going first.
So, I was surprised how much I enjoyed it, and honestly, I could see it's something that even if it was just a one and done thing, like didn't make any other like follow ups and stuff, I'd be happy with just as it being a standalone film. Like the characters.
Who was your favourite?
Honestly, I think I did like Simon.
Yeah, really. I agree.
I think he's kind of just like, again, he's just like the character who doesn't.
You can relate to him, yeah.
Yeah, but it's not so self-assured, yeah. And obviously, I think it lends the humour from that because of that. But yeah, there we go. And I say, like, seeing what the world had to offer, I feel like you've probably learned a little bit more than I have about the world, I suppose, obviously from a character perspective. But there's a lot to enjoy of this, and I say, like, I would be very happy if they did actually make another one. Balls in their court for making another one down the line, but
you have to make another one.
I say either way, I'm not bothered if they do or not, but not too disheartened if they didn't.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Would you come back to this though? Would you rewatch it?
Yeah, I think I would. And so I will give it an 8. I got that. Enjoy. I'd say like a good fantasy film, and it wasn't too like cringy, and it was just that right level of obviously not super violent, not too corny in terms of what it was going for in terms of effects, especially as well.
Yeah.
So
I feel like
lot to enjoy, I think. Yeah.
I feel like I agree with you on this one. I feel like I'm gonna go an 8 too. I was sat here thinking, well, what did I give Scooby-Doo? If you want to go and listen to that on our 200th episode, then definitely go do that. I feel like an 8 is justified. I really love Simon, and I love his like character development within it. I really like Doric as well as a druid, and just the whole badassness of what a druid can give, and just the whole kind of humour, Hugh Grant-ness within it is just great. I can never fault Hugh Grant. And it's just a fantasy, but it's just a fantasy, but it's at the same time not so intense. Like Lord of the Rings can be quite... It's not a light-hearted one, whereas this is quite light-hearted, and it's easy to kind of get intrigued by it, but not have to have like a full attention span of who's that, who's this, who's that. Like even in Game of Thrones, you can get a bit lost if you're not paying attention, whereas this is quite straightforward. That's a series, yeah. And it's plain as day. It's not really hard to get confused in it. No. But it's a good start of a building block, I think, to get into this kind of genre. Yeah.
Good entry level, I'd say. That, and I say the runtime really helped as well. I think it wasn't too long, it wasn't too short to get to know them and everything.
Yeah, and I feel like you weren't left with anything like didn't leave you on a cliffhanger. You won't want him more. It kind of just...
Yeah, because in the way it's the way it ended like that, it wasn't like, there's going to be a new bad coming out next, this as a setup for next time. It could very well be just that's that.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And you're happy with how it ends, and it's like,
I wasn't going like, what the hell kind of thing, like, oh, this question didn't get answered. And very, satisfying watch. I would say
which I'm quite surprised, actually, because I did think I was going in thinking it was going to be absolutely rubbish. I won't lie.
So, yeah, pleasantly surprised. So, thank you very much for listening to this episode. And if you would like to listen to some of our other episodes, you can do so by going over to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, and wherever else you get your podcasts from. And as always, be sure to leave us a 5-star review over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podchaser, and wherever else they do the scoring system.
And if you haven't already, why not are you following us on social media? I mean, where have you been? We have done 200 episodes.
Come on.
I feel like it was like off Harry Potter. Where have you been? About Ronald Weasley. So if
get
you
humour like this.
So if you do want to follow us, then you can follow us on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Threads. That's all of them. And you can do it under the handle SP_filmviewers.
I'd also like to take a moment to thank the Patreons. And if you would like to have your name read out, like we're going to do in a moment, and have the chance to vote for a movie we watch once a month, such as this one, then all you have to do is go to patreon.com/SPFilmviewers, and you pay as little as £1 or $1.50 a month for those privileges. And now we're going to shout out the lovely people who have joined our little family.
Yep. So obviously, my mum. Obviously, I wouldn't be here if it weren't for her. So you're welcome.
We've got Alex, who is under the handle at Desperately Seeking Username on Instagram, and his wife, Shani.
Still seems weird saying wife, doesn't it? I know they've been married since December.
Who is at SDOG on Instagram.
Then we've got the wonderful Jonesy, who did a brilliant job at being a DM. Is that the right wording?
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to find him, he's under the handle Weight Loss Jonesy on Instagram. Then his wonderful partner, Emma. She's also on Instagram under the handle Emma_Hayton.
We've got our friend Gren, who is at CGren_draw on Instagram. We've got Mark from 100 Things You Learned from Film, Nico from The Good, The Bad, and The Weird podcast, and Ben from Film Vloggers.
Yep, so they definitely have been part of our podcasts and we've been part of theirs. Definitely go check The Good, The Bad, and The Weird podcast out as well, because we've actually just reviewed that movie. Yeah. And Nico does a little, what's the word, intro for us, if you call it that, a little bit of a quip in there. So yeah, it's quite nice to create a little family with podcast people as well. So we're also trying to have a guest on at least once a month this year. So if you haven't already and you do want to join us, please reach out to us and let us know, and we'll try and make that happen.
Mm-hmm. So, thank you once again for listening, and we will speak to you next time.
Speak to you next time.
Bye now.
Bye.
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 Bye.